I wish I had that kind of talent. And I really mean that. God did not bless me with musical talent. Matter of fact, I just flat out rebelled against it when I was a kid. And I'm ashamed to say, because you've heard me say this before, when I wanted to be Dracula in cleats, right? Jack Lambert, my mom handed me a violin. And so I rebelled against it. Not her fault, 100% my fault. And I regret it when I hear beautiful, beautiful music being played like that. If you would have heard my playing, trust me, you'd be going like this, not applauding. So as I shared with you, this is a morning in which we have punted. The printer isn't working. Stephanie isn't feeling well. And so, frankly, I was sort of faced with what do I do? Because Stephanie was supposed to preach. And that's okay. I told her we're a team. You know, not every one of my sermons or messages lands, but the music usually does, and so we've got a backup. I mean, literally, you've been there before, right? It is the whole coming together, I think, that makes this so wonderful and so unique of a place. I'll also say that I've never been in a place that's quite like this. Every other congregation that I've ever served, I had to do almost all of the lifting. And I was waiting for something like this morning to happen. In almost every service, something would. And that's not a cut on them. Okay? That's not a cut on the congregations I've served. Okay? That's a lift up of this thing that we love. This amazing worship experience. This amazing family community. This amazing supportive place that we call Calvin. Now, I don't know exactly what Stephanie had in mind when she picked this piece of art, but I love it, don't you? So part of what I did is I went back and looked at the last time that I preached on this passage. Any guesses when it was? It was when I was here for 1 year. So I came here, literally Thanksgiving weekend, so that I could be here for all of Advent. Okay? So the first time I preached here was Thanksgiving weekend, and then I went on from there. And so 1 year later, in, what does it say here? November 22nd, 2020, I preached here. And the sermon on the very first time I preached here was Why Give Thanks? Okay? And I asked you in short if you might be experiencing your own Great Depression, feeling like life isn't fair, feeling like you're having health problems. And then I said, and I quote, or possibly you feel like you lost everything. Friends and all. Because your dad got his dream call and moved you 1,000 miles away. Then to give Josh, Anna, and Adeline, who were sitting right over there, a little perspective and a tribute to their pap, I said, or worse yet, a loved one died. Since that first Thanksgiving, that first Advent and that first Christmas together, we had a month or two of normalcy. But do you remember what happened after I first got here? We were about to move into our new home. And you know all about it because you experienced it too. A lockdown. You know, technically for 5 months, 4 years ago, we were homeless. And you heard me say that we were the best off homeless people on the planet. And I didn't say that to make light of it. I said it because it's a serious problem. And I said it because Matthew 25 undoubtedly calls us to serve. Slide 1, Tom. Basically, living out of suitcases. We were at the Blue Thistle. This is Anna and Adeline using those strings to make those neat little contraptions. I don't even know how they do it. But for the first 3 months of the lockdown, we were over at the Blue Thistle. We were the best off homeless people on the planet. And 4 of us were working. 3 of us full-time, 1 of them a solid 20 hours a week, while Anna and Adeline went to school. I will tell you, I believe that Calvin saved my kids' lives. They came to the conference room. We knew the Silvis girls were being super safe too, so they literally we made a little bubble there. And the girls did school online in the conference room. A little bit of sanity getting away from home. And Emma, can you imagine Emma, Dawn's daughter, 4 years ago? She was there every morning. And so in between classes, they had the opportunity to play with her, to feed her, to do a lot of fun things with her. Well, I don't know if you know this. Slide number 2. But I went back then and we looked at our original children's messages. Do you remember them? I literally sat in one of the chairs at the Blue Thistle, opened up a book, held my iPhone with my headphones in so you got a better sound, and read the children's books. And we thought that was awesome. And people were paying attention and people were watching, and it was good. It's nothing compared to what we did a year later. Nothing. We added in soundtracks and motions and guest narrators. Do you remember that? And I'm not sure if you remember this, but I asked our staff, who had been meeting monthly, basically just going over the calendar, to meet every week. And they didn't flinch one bit. They said, definitely, we have to do this. We did it, and we asked big questions, and we dreamed worthy dreams. And we made Calvin this well-knit, inspired, transformational worship experience. It was very Willy Wonka-like. We literally did the undoable. I distinctly remember, slide number 3, a voicemail that we got from a neighbor thanking us for the crosses that we made during the lockdown and hung them in front. And in tears, she said, "This is the first Lent that my mom has ever not been able to go to church and get ashes, not been able to go to church and get her crosses. And so she took one home for her mom." Number 4, we've had Easter sidewalk chalk art that literally made the national news in publications and in television news. Thank you, Kelly Casey and her daughter. We've had virtual Easter egg hunts, number 5. We had a butterfly celebration, number 6. Butterfly celebration and a prayer wall on Dwayne's fence. Do you remember that? We had a bunch of Calvin Unplugged, number 7s, out at Connie's farm. We even safely, number 8, squeezed in some socially distanced, mask-wearing, hand sanitizing mission trip to Camp Westminster. Remember that? We packed meals because we weren't going to be able to stop at rest stops. We could only get gas. Number 9, we even had CC2P, Calvin Cares to Prepare, which again was a safe, socially distanced, masked, hand hygiene hour, preparing our little kids to go to school, to get back into school. And it included a sidewalk chalk obstacle course, number 10, that people in our neighborhood would bring their kids to walk and to do outside of my office window. It was an absolute delight. Number 11, we had Calvin Chapel, and we had 70 people signed up to do, in 7 small groups for 10 weeks, to do Finding Myself. And then we had plans to do that for Advent and Lent, and you know what? It kind of fell apart. Do you remember how awesome that was? All of us doing the same study, all of us getting together scattered and then coming back together. And we had grand plans. Do you remember that, Lisa, in Spiritual Nurture? Of saying, we're going to do this again. But you know what? Time went on, and some people drifted away. And that's okay. But this great thing sort of fell apart. There's still remnants of it. There's still a Saturday morning lectionary group that gets together to study the lectionary and the bulletin and guess what I'm going to be doing. But can you imagine if each and every one of us was still involved in those things just for like Lent and Easter? In fact, we went ahead and number 12, okay, we had 4 different Advent curriculums that we went ahead and bought that year, encouraging you to do them at home. Okay? And I don't know if you do remember this, but we also encourage you to make little sanctuaries at home so that when you worshiped online, you had the Bible open there. You had a candle there to light. All of those things make a difference. And this year, we're encouraging you to do that again so that if you are doing your devotions at home or if you miss one Sunday, you can still have a whiff of that, an experience of that. You can still be deep in prayer, deep in worship. Listen, none of us thought that the pandemic was going to go on that long. Okay? I have some friends who were in Disney this last week. And I don't have their permission, so I won't use their names, but they shared with me that they got COVID while they were there. I don't know whether or not they had to go into quarantine, but it's still here. It's still around. Do you remember how we all really got together and we said, listen, this is going to deepen our faith. This is going to prepare us for another time in life when we're not going to be able to have things as normal as they are normally. Imagine if we could recapture that. Imagine if we could all be in it for the long haul. Imagine if the perseverance, if the inspiration and dedication that we all put in at home when we are completely scattered, imagine if we were all doing that right here, right now. Imagine how much better off we would all be. So the question remains, what in the world does all of this have to do with Matthew 25 and Thanksgiving? Listen, this is exactly what I said 1 year into my times being here. Listen, we are all fatigued. Fatigued by COVID, fatigued by this election, fatigued by radical injustice, racial injustice, inequality, fatigued by fires and storms, fatigued by economic stress. We're fatigued by being fatigued. You know what? I think we're still fatigued. How about you? Sanctuaries across this country are half full, just like this, because people are fatigued. People are tired. And people are not making that extra effort. I don't blame them. I'm fatigued too. But what can we do to help them out? You'll see there are 6 care cards out there, actually 7. Okay? 6 care cards out there today. 3 are going to go to the middle school, and 3 are going to go to the high school to support young people who are fatigued. I'm a part of a mental health roundtable called the Hope Squad. Some of you know about it. Okay? And I was in a meeting with the teachers, and we all shared what we were doing in our contexts. And I shared our care cards, and they were like, oh, can we get some of those? So we're going to bring them 3. Whenever a young person feels fatigued, they're going to get a card with all of your signatures on it. Not with Calvin on it anywhere. With all of your signatures on it. Think about the stigmas that those are going to break down. Think about the support that they're going to feel. Think about the love that's going to be real and tangible to them whenever they see that card. And when they get down to 1 card, they'll give me a call. And we'll make 3 more for them. The other one's for Denny Segafredo on the loss of Brenda, which many of you know about. All of you know Judy Kirkovich. Well, 3 years ago, she and I talked, and this is what I wrote about it. She gave me an update on Wayne's broken pelvis. Now, if you don't know all that Judy's been through, you should. She is a walking, talking, living miracle, about 1,000,001 times over. I commended her for her strength, and she said, well, when Wayne and I got married, I told him my mother was a nurse, and my sister is a nurse. And she listed a few other nurses in her family. And she said to Wayne, I'm a teacher, and I'm not going to be a nurse. And Judy smiled and then said, 40 years, and I've been a nurse the whole time. And we laughed together. Imagine if we made 3 care cards anonymously, and each of us took them to someone who we knew was hurting. Someone who we love and miss, who maybe used to sit next to us in church. Imagine if we gave them a phone call and said, I love you and I miss you. Not saying, please come back, just saying, I love you and I miss you. They'll come back on their own time. I really believe that. You see, the point is, this is an essential Thanksgiving, because if we're not thankful, if we don't look for the bright side of life, and yes, that's a Monty Python reference. If all we do is dwell on the negative, all we're going to see and feel and experience is the negative. I've shared a dozen things that could have been canceled, and I could share a dozen more. Think about all the things that you can do, that I can do, that we should do, that are not canceled. Church is not canceled. Quiet time in that little sacred space is not canceled. Praying for the sick is not canceled. Checking on a friend is not canceled. Feeding the hungry is not canceled. Quenching the thirsty is not canceled. Housing the homeless, not canceled. Clothing the naked, not canceled. The only thing I wrote 3 years ago in Matthew 25's life of essential ministry that is canceled is visiting the sick and the imprisoned. And guess what? We can do that too. We can pray for them. We can send them cards and letters in care cards. Friends, the church is not a building. Despite the fact that Calvin has bent over backwards to provide a bunch of meaningful, essential ministries, the church is not a bunch of ministry. The church is you. It's me. It's who we're called to be now as much as ever. Because whenever we do one of these things to someone who's overlooked or ignored, that was Jesus. We did it unto him. Amen? Amen. Amen.